A very good morning as well. This is still Smart Means Business. We have someone to take us through on our insight. Remember, in most cases when we come on, we want to have more insight into what is happening regionally, nationally, as well as internationally. On this particular segment, we are going to be looking further into rejections happening to exports, Ugandan exports. What is happening out there? Is the woman affected? The woman forms the bulk of the agribusiness industry, the farming industry, and to help us, to give us insight on this, we are right now with Mr. Chariton Namuwoza, sorry about that, and he is the CEO for Nogamu Uganda. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's such a delight to have you.
I'm very excited to be here once again. I've been here quite a number of times.
Sure, sure.
And I like your positioning statement.
Thank you.
Smart means business.
Smart means business. We are all about business.
Agribusiness, we're talking about organic agriculture.
Definitely.
Yes.
Let us know, you do hold as well a couple of other titles. You are also the president for another network.
I'm privileged to be the president of the African Organic Network, which is the continental body that unites the organic industry in Africa.
Yes.
And that means I have oversight over, let's say, activities on the African continent, from production to processing to trade. And that obviously puts me in a very good position even to advise governments and actors that are looking at promoting organic agriculture.
And right now, we are talking to the right person.
Of course.
We are talking to the right person to give us insight, but also to answer questions in regards to what is happening out there. Yes. Let's just take a smooth recap, just a brief hint. 1.878 trillion given to agro-industrialization from this budget 2024-25, 2.023 trillion for private sector development, 2.4 trillion goes over to PDM Emioga 50 billion microfinance support center. We can see that a lot is being injected, a lot of money is being injected in some of these platforms, the infrastructure that is needed to enable farming. Yeah. Move on to the next level, not only just farming, access to financing, agro-industrialization. And now when you get to talk about the part of production, yes, moving on to the next niche. What is happening within the production strata, that particular strata? Yeah. And what are we doing right now to ensure that there is something that gets to change about it?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to commend government for focusing a lot on agriculture and within the context of agro-industrialization and looking at the budget and having read it and unpacked it. I think there's been a lot of consideration for growing production and increasing productivity. We've seen a lot of allocations in as far as agriculture mechanization is concerned. We've also seen, again, I think this is happening, I think for the second time. There is a lot of focus on climate change, yes, which again, in one way or another, impacts negatively on production. Now, at the level of production, we note with concern that, and according to a report that was published by Uganda Bureau of Statistics in 2018-2019, what they dubbed as the annual agriculture survey, there is an alarming rate of soil fertility decline in the country. Yeah. Most of the farmers that we see are smallholder farmers, and because of the land degradation and poor, agricultural practices and the population explosion, we see declining levels of production, and occasioned by the poor culture of using fertilizers. Yeah. We see declining, or smaller sizes of land that farmers cultivate, again because of the high population. So this budget seems to give some attention to issues relating to production and productivity. And I think we need to be cognizant that the cost of fertilizers has grown, has increased by over 200% in the last 3 years. and this is obvious. It's because of the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah.
We import most of the fertilizers we use. And so even a farmer that wants to use fertilizers, a farmer that is aware that their soils are lacking in the nutrients that are required to support plant growth and guarantee yield, high yield, suffers from the high cost of the fertilizers.
Yeah.
And that now opens our eyes to strategic issues that government needs to pay attention to. Number one, the fact that the cost of fertilizer is high. We need to explore other alternatives. And one of the best alternatives, and I've said this over and over again, is manufacturing organic fertilizers or organic farming for that matter.
Yeah.
Because besides applying the fertilizers, or what we call external inputs, there are practices on the farm that a farmer can do, and that will increase production and productivity.
Yeah.
For instance, I know that many of the farmers get about 10 bags of maize per acre, but with simple organic fertilizers, liquid fertilizers, and through my organization we have launched what we call the Nogama Academy, which is the vehicle by which we are mobilizing farmers and other actors to increase their capacity for production, increase their capacity for organic agriculture. And a simple training that focuses on manufacturing or producing organic fertilizers using local available materials that a farmer can afford.
Now that's even where now I even am forced to cut you short, right?
Yeah.
Because I have had wonderful stories from different stakeholders, key players as well within farming in Uganda, and we've been looking at the role of women in export for quite a while. Right now we are linking that to the budget. Talking about linking, why is it that seemingly wonderful ideas out there about how to increase export, how to get down to the farming bracket, the production area, there seems to be a lot of disjointed efforts and coordination of the highest order. I have never seen such a sorry state. Yes, because you have so wonderful, and I've even asked agencies in regards to this, why is it that everyone seems to hog the fame? Yes, everyone wants to seem to hog the fame instead of partnering together so that something can be done. Let me take it back a little bit earlier on. When in the last, I know there's been sort of like a different revolution. The very first time it was more or less into pesticides, all these different chemically induced, pesticides and the insecticide and everything. And that is what went into agriculture, and it is still there. Then later on the consumer started getting a little bit sensitive and saying, you know what, there's a lot of cancer coming out, there's a lot of ABCD mutations, can we go back to organics? This has been happening for quite a while on the global scene, and you've seen countries that predominantly were using chemicals get back into organic farming. Why is it taking such a long time to come down here?
Indeed, there's been a lot of research conducted that links what we eat to the diseases that we are suffering from, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, and all these things. And the consumer is now increasingly getting more and more, conscious, more and more concerned about what they eat. And most importantly, where that food comes from. And so as a country, we need to position ourselves in such a way that we respond to the needs of this consumer. And that's why the demand for organic products continues to grow. It's huge and continues to grow. And you saw that during COVID, when the whole world was, concerned
looking for lemons.
Exactly, lemons. You could hardly get lemons. Again, because of the growing or the high, awareness about the need to consume healthy organic products that boost immunity.
Let me ask it again, Chariton. Why is there poor coordination? Yes, why?
There is poor coordination, first of all, because I think everyone needs to find their niche, and there seems to be some kind of pressure on the resources that we have, so that when, let's say, there is an opportunity that knocks, people will position themselves to grab those opportunities, whether they have the capacity or not, whether they have the knowledge or ability to take advantage of what has been, brought their way or not. But I think what we need to do as a country, we need to work out what we call the private-public partnerships, where each of the actors has a role to play. Women, for instance, and youth, and other actors can be coordinated by government. If there is a fund, for instance, for youth and women, we know that youth are very ambitious. And the ones that are close to the opportunity, the ones that are standing in the way of the opportunity, will make every effort to grab it and make sure no one else gets it. So there has to be some kind of coordination, and by an authority like government, where, for instance, youth can be clustered around a particular enterprise, and their capacities can be assessed, and opportunities, let's say, distributed amongst these youth. And we could do this in different ways. We can work out what we call, for instance, I'll give you an example. We have a huge demand for dried fruits, for instance. And we do not have a single company that can satisfy this demand. Now, think about a women or a woman-owned business and a youth-owned business with this small capital. They've invested in drying fruits. And they know that there is a market somewhere, and they can go and borrow and establish, let's say, a factory at their level. So we could have several of these youths clustered or organized around this value chain. And then we can have a coordination by my organization, for instance, bring them together because we know where the market is, and we can then link them to the market in an organized way. They can bulk a container. One brings 200 kilos, another one brings 500 kilos.
Instead of individual actions, all scattered around,
akin to what happens in the importation business, where young women and men, go to China, for instance,
came
buy
together,
a few, let's say, kilos
of
items
within
and
the
put
container.
in one container. Then the container lands in Mombasa, and then each one of them, of course, takes their share. I think we need to have that kind of organization, and government has a role to play in that. The private sector has a role to play. So coming together, for instance, my organization works very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture. We could coordinate efforts to link
all those organic
and
farmers
women,
and all those
businesses to different markets.
Have you tried in the past as Nogamo to come up and rally these efforts? Call them all by name and say, can we have ABCD done together? Yes,
we've done this for dried fruit, and we continue doing this for different enterprises. We have many companies, for instance, that deal in sesame, where, let's say, one company has been given a contract of, let's say, 6,000 metric tons of sesame. They can't satisfy that.
They can't.
For different reasons. Their warehousing capacity, of course, has a limit, and there are many other limitations. So what we do is we work with this company, and we share that information with other companies that might be interested in that marketing opportunity. So that way, company A works with company B to supply buyer X. And buyer X is satisfied. Company A and company B are happy because they have sold, and they have, they have cleared their warehouses. So this has happened, and as I said, in different value chains. We've seen this also in coffee and spices. The capacity to produce spices that are demanded out there in Uganda is very low. But And then you have farmers that have what they have bulked and put together, but it's low grade, it's poor quality. And I think that takes a lot of effort. And what the ministry, and I'm not a spokesman of the ministry, what the ministry is trying to do is to promote efforts to, to support the formation of groups and cooperatives and associations, and work with organizations like Nogamo to build the capacities of these groups to establish certifiable quality management systems. And what you see in the market, for instance, is a result of what's happening at the point of production, where our exports are being rejected by buyers in the EU, mostly in the EU.
It's very sad.
And it's because it doesn't mean that the government is not doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, you'll see inspectors at the point of export. But at the point of export, that's already too late. Because what they're inspecting comes from the farm. And it's coming from the farm when it is heavily dosed with
all these different
non-allowed chemicals.
Exactly. All these NDAs. Are they called NDAs? Yes?
Yeah, exactly. So there is what we call maximum residue levels. There is some acceptance of, let's say, some residue, because it might not be avoided, right? Especially if a farmer is using synthetic chemicals, fertilizers or pesticides or whatever. But if it exceeds that level, which is acceptable, it will be rejected. And that's what we have seen. And we don't seem to realize that the problem, the biggest challenge, lies at the point of production. And that's where we need to establish certifiable quality management systems. Let's promote practices that are heavy on the use of allowed inputs, organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, that do not impact negatively on the quality of the product that we're trying to export. Because you cannot, I call this the leaky bucket syndrome, where you're using a leaky bucket to fetch water.
You never get that much.
You will never get that much. So we seem to be putting in a lot, and even within the context of agro-industrialization, we seem to be establishing the infrastructure that is necessary to bulk. We seem to be doing all these things, but we are not realizing that there is a lot of damage that we are creating by using chemicals, which are largely imported, on the crops that we are trying to bulk and process and export. They are going to be rejected. So we need to reorient our production system towards organic agriculture, towards the use of organic inputs, towards practices that are acceptable.
Chariton, even before we get to the organic part of it, we are trying to find out exactly where the problem is. I recently had a discussion with someone, and I said, who is to blame? Yes? Whose head should be chopped off? Is it the agriculture extension workers down?
Don't chop off anyone's head because you'll be a terrorist.
that is just a figure of speech.
Exactly.
But the reality is that there must be some action, because clearly someone is not doing their job. Should it be the agriculture extension worker down who is not reaching, or the agriculture extension worker will also say, I don't have the necessary fuel, the much needed logistics to get down to the farmer, and in addition to that, I do not even have the right information as to what I should be talking to the farmer about. So when I reach the farmer, that is the agriculture extension worker, when I get to the farmer, we are talking about, yes, do soybean, or this particular chemical can work. I am not aware through the export board that some particular rejections, almost 80% of our exports have been rejected. He's saying, I am not aware. So who is to blame? The person at the top or the person at the bottom? Because clearly someone is sitting with information that is not trickling down.
I think it's a myriad of issues, and one of them is the extension, the education that is largely bent on conventional agriculture. And conventional in the sense that we seem to be, and I'll bring in another metaphor here, we seem to be putting on the wrong shoe. The size of the shoe that we're putting on is in most cases too big for us. I'll tell you, if we are talking about commercial agriculture, We think that commercial agriculture is synonymous with the use of synthetic fertilizers, synthetic chemicals, which is not true.
And that is still the belief.
It is the belief. And this is what students, and I'm one of those that went to an agriculture,
Yes.
to university and studied agriculture. One of the things that an agriculturist, the moment they graduate, one thing they know is that for you to do commercial agriculture,
You must use
you must use synthetic.
Yes.
They don't believe that organic agriculture has a place in commercial agriculture, and that's not true. We have demonstrated, and we continue doing so, that organic agriculture can increase
Definitely.
the yield and improve the livelihoods of farmers. And we've seen many farmers escape the trap of poverty through organic agriculture. We have seen farmers that have used predominantly organic inputs. In some cases, they purchase these inputs.
Yeah.
In some instances, they make them. I'll give you an example. It takes very little money to make a liquid fertilizer.
Sure.
Organic fertilizer that you
Yes.
can apply on a plant and increase your yield by 40 to 50%.
From what I know, from what I know with what the stories that we used to be told, it's just a matter of even getting your own urine and leaving it in the bucket, right? For quite a while. No, these are stories that used to be passed.
Yeah.
Yes, used to be passed on from generation to generation.
Yes.
Yes, from those farming communities,
Yeah.
and even during the ones that I could be able to get a sneak peek into were the use of ash.
Yeah.
Yes, the use of ash, and I think urine that has spent some time or something like that. Of course, they are different. These are unconventional ways, but still, they can impact.
They do.
Yeah, they do impact.
But let me tell you, this is what we call traditional farming practices. Traditional farming practices, 80% of what a traditional farmer is doing is close to organic agriculture.
80%.
80%.
In Uganda.
Over the traditional farmer. And that's why in Uganda we say our farmers are organic by default. And our Minister of Agriculture, State Minister of Agriculture, the retired Major Bwino Kyakulagga, has severally said that organic agriculture is our culture because this is what we do, this is what our farmers do.
Yeah.
When you traverse the country from the north to the south and from the east to the west, this is what you'll find. However, there is a lot more than that in organic agriculture. To move an extra mile to become an organic farmer, a typical organic farmer, there is a lot more than
Let me get this straight. Do you
traditional
mean
farming
rudimentary or organic?
Okay, so what
Are we typically traditional rudimentary farmers?
Okay, so the word rudimentary means basic.
Yes, basic.
In some cases we call it backward.
Yes, traditional.
Now, organic agriculture has science in it, and it's based on 4 principles. And once the farmer understands these, they are switched on.
Which 4 principles are those?
The principle of health, the principle of ecology.
Yeah.
I'll explain.
Yes.
The principle of, you're going to learn by the end of this show.
I know, and this is why we're, why we're here.
So the principle of health, the principle of ecology, care, and fairness. Health is basically the health in the soil,
yes,
the health of the plants that grow on the soil, the health of the animals, the health of the birds, the health of humans, and everything
that comes
on the
in
planet.
between, yes.
You cannot separate the health of soil from the health of plants.
Yeah.
If you're applying a chemical on the soil, you're killing life in the soil. There are microorganisms in the soil. There is water. And all these are contaminated, and that eventually gets back into your glass.
Yes.
Because the water is coming from underground. And as you of course, you plant or grow your crops on this soil, they're going to pick up these chemicals. And that's why we see these residues.
Yes.
And that's why you see rejections at the point of export, because it's coming from the soil. So that's what health is about. And organic farmers know that they can't do anything that is going to impact negatively on the health of the plants, the soils, on the health of the animals, on the health of the humans.
Is this part of regenerative agriculture?
Well, regenerative agriculture is another call it another version, if you like. There are some principles. There's a lot of similarity, but some differences as well. Now, and of course, regenerative agriculture, agroecology, organic agriculture, they have a lot in common. The 4 principles of organic agriculture cut across. Now, we also have the principle of ecology, taking care of the environment. We know, for instance, that coffee can do much better if it's grown within an agroforestry kind of environment, shaded kind of environment. The trees fix the nutrients as the leaves drop off. They fix the soil structure, the aeration and all these things. The water retention capacity
is better.
And they hold it. So a farmer that is organic, that has an organic mindset, knows that they cannot grow coffee just as a pure stand. They'll have to intercrop it with other trees.
And this is how it used to be long time ago.
Exactly. And that's why I said 80% of what a traditional farmer does is close. Now, but so there is a lot more.
Is it organic? It
is organic by default, if you like, by accident. Okay, it's close to what an organic farmer should be doing. The practices, trenching and making sure that they mulch, they compost,
as our forefathers used to do.
Exactly, recycling of nutrients and emulating natural systems, like in the forest kind of environment. That's what we call the principle of agroecology. Taking care of our environment and making sure that we are recycling nutrients and that all the entities within the environment are depending on the other, and there is that, complementarity.
That is how the beautiful system was. Then later on there was an introduction
adulterated
of all these synthetic fertilizers.
Exactly.
Now, we are finding it very difficult to transition back into the organic one, because recently I had, within this particular growing season, this wet season, I had a conversation with some of the farmers in northeast Uganda, and they were telling me that we are not
Karamoja?
No. I will not but just know it is around the eastern area. And this the farmer said, in our own village we are not even able to maximize on the acreage of how much we are going to till. One, because the fertilizers are so expensive. They are so expensive, the pesticides themselves are so expensive, and then the varieties themselves, which we cannot even, are so expensive as well. Everything is expensive. So even if I want to do 10 acres, I'm limited. I'm limited by the cash to be able to do that. And then you'll notice even the varieties that come in, basically it's a one-off. You plant them and then you cannot replant again as it used to be. When we go back to our theme, our topic right now, looking at the mismatch and the coordination, why is it that with all the problems that are going on that people such as you know, and the agriculturalists up there know, why is it so difficult to transition back into organic farming, and then be able to ensure that whatever is set for export is good quality, is top-notch, and is good? 80% wastage.
I know. First of all, you need to tell that farmer that we have many alternatives, organic fertilizers that are much cheaper. 40%, 50% cheaper. But also, through our academy, and we could go to that region or district to mobilize farmers, organize them, and build their capacities to make organic fertilizer, liquid organic fertilizers. And that will come at nearly zero cost, if you like. Because
and it's sustainable. They can do it themselves. It's sustainable.
We are rolling this out, and it's going to be a lot easier for our farmers that cannot afford even the organic fertilizers. So by the way, the culture of using external inputs in this country is very poor. For starters, many farmers don't like the idea of going to a shop to buy what they call an organic fertilizer. They will buy a chemical in form of a pesticide to manage pests and diseases. But a fertilizer, it is deeply engraved on the minds of the farmers that you can make your own fertilizer, but they don't know how to do that. And because somehow there was a transition from using organic fertilizers, as you said, to the chemical fertilizers. And this is what the extensions have delivered in their messages. Oh, go and buy this fertilizer, this chemical is okay, and that. So the farmer is stuck. Now, going back to what they ought to do, will take a lot of effort in terms of capacity building, organizing these farmers to work together as a group, share knowledge. And there is an approach that we are using, and we've dubbed it the participatory guarantee system. It's accepted globally, by which farmers can, practice organic farming and attain certification in a very, very affordable manner. And that requires participation of the farmers themselves, but also the local leaders, the extensionists, and other stakeholders within the buyer who is interested to buy from them. And the idea here is that farmers will practice organic farming and in a participatory way offer certification to themselves. Okay, so the 4 stakeholders, the farmers, the extensionists, the trainers, the buyers, and all those that are interested in a particular value chain will come together and verify the practices on this farm and then approve certification. And Nogamo, my organization, is mandated to ratify the decisions of these farmers, and their product will be acceptable. So it takes, first of all, capacity building. Let them know how to do it. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Without that, they can't transition back because they don't know. Number 2, we've got to create the demand and supply for organic inputs.
The demand and supply.
Demand and supply means we have people that are manufacturing or producing organic fertilizers. We have those that cannot produce or
but
that
they need.
Let's link them. So let's increase the demand by creating awareness about the availability of these products. So let people now start demanding, and then let's make sure from the fertilizers move from the point of production to the point of...
Chariton, you had mentioned earlier on that the farmers in their mind, they have a mindset, and they can easily get the pesticides, but they will not get the different pesticides and insecticides, but they cannot go to the shop to get the organic fertilizer. Right?
It's a culture. Again, it stems from what, because culture.
Why is it per se because it's organic or just as a fertilizer?
In the past, there was no need to buy fertilizers. Because farmers composted. Farmers practice what we called shifting cultivation, because there was a lot of land. They would move from point A
and go to the next
land. The soil fertility has been exhausted, and move to point B because they had a lot of land
and leave it to fallow. Because
of the population explosion, we don't have that luxury anymore. There's no land. Farmers own up to a quarter an acre. A farmer that used to own 50 acres now owns quarter an acre when you go to the mountainous areas, Mountain Elgon, Rwenzori, and those other areas where the population is high.
I've also noticed in Kabale and Kisoro,
yes, exactly.
Because they don't have the means now to rotate, and move on from one to another and leave this patch to follow. But I've also noticed, especially in regards to a variety of climbing plants, that what they do is they carry out the bush burning, then they get that ash, mix it with some manure, and before they plant, that is what they put in. It's a must that actually if you want to gain any particular yield, you must do that, and I know for sure farmers in Kabale and Kisoro are doing that. That is part of organic farming, and in the event that there is a bumper harvest and this and that, they would still be able to export. They would not have any particular rejections.
Exactly.
So if at all apart from the rudimentary information and the knowledge that is there that has been passed on from generation to generation, you're also saying that they have the ability for capacity building to be taught on other organic fertilizer, how to make their own organic fertilizer.
Yes, to improve soil fertility, because the challenge is that piece of land, which is the only piece that the farmer has, you can't keep mining. What we call, you plant or grow your crops and harvest. You harvest, but it means you have mined the nutrients out of that soil. So it's not sustainable. You'll have declining levels of yields over time. So for you to be able to produce sustainably and harvest a substantial yield, you need to do something about that soil. And what you're saying is part of that. So make sure that the soil is replenished.
Yeah.
The soil is constantly maintained in terms
Being
of
given.
fertility, and you have to feed it.
Yes.
So soil is like a living, it's a living organism. So it has to eat. It has to be fed with nutrients, the nutrients that support the sustainable growth of plants. And what you put in the soil obviously determines the safety of the food that we are going to harvest from that. So if you're putting chemicals in that soil, you'll obviously get unsafe food, and that eventually, you know, impacts on our exports as well. So there has to be capacity building at that level. Let the farmer know what sort of practices do I need to put in place to be able to harvest this bunch of matoke every season.
Yeah.
And it's possible because farmers are doing it, and they're using simple practices, things that are not expensive, things that are affordable, and on the same piece of land.
Now, to me, what was going on in my mind, because seemingly the resources are few, it's very difficult, and the coordination is still very, very poor. Now, to me, what I was thinking about, what are other options, alternative options? You have all these monies, 2.4 trillion, being given, you know, made accessible for different groups in agribusiness, then the ones who are actually farmers can be able to tap. Is it at any one time a possibility that maybe Nogamo, and different organizations such as yours can be able to come in as more or less an addendum, and say, you know what, for all those farmers who would like to access some of these monies, and that is now parish level and all these different grassroots, can we as well be able to push that there is an opportunity maybe in soya beans, but it has to be a particular quality, and they want you to go organic, and this is where ABCD can be got. Any services for the soya bean seeds can be got from here. ABCD for the expertise for how to plant, for how this can be got from here. Why isn't that being done?
Now, I'll tell you, when we began this conversation, and I'll remind you, I mentioned what I called PPP.
Yes, the private sector partnership.
We can strike a delicate balance between what government does or must do and what the private sector is doing. We can join hands. Nogamo, for instance, with Maif can join hands and utilize part of that budget to roll out a capacity building program across the country. We will retool the extensionists. Let them know that apart from what they studied, there's a lot more in the world of organic agriculture that they can learn and teach farmers and reposition farmers and empower them to grow or produce organically. And that spirals down and impacts you know, on the
different areas,
on different nodes of the chain. And so, for instance, the parish development model, the money that has been, you know, apportioned to the parish development model, we could utilize part of that budget to establish what you call satellite organic production.
Like the zones? The zones, yes, the zones under
sort of mini factories. Mini factories. And the farmers themselves at the parish can establish a mini factory for organic fertilizers. And by factory, I'm not really talking about this sophisticated, you know, state-of-the-art infrastructure. Simple.
Very simple, but very effective.
Very simple, effective. And they can produce enough fertilizers that they need for that parish, and even sell to the neighboring parishes. Can
you tell us just a little bit of some of the inputs of these organic fertilizers?
Inputs like
and whether they're accessible.
They are. We have companies like, you know, Vermipro. They're producing a lot of liquid fertilizers. We have a number of companies like there's one here in Golobi, just here in Golobi. It's a big factory.
I think the only one I know is called Fertiplus.
Okay, there is Fertiplus. There's Fertiplus. There are many. There are over now 15.
In Uganda.
Last I checked, in Uganda, and some are using the black soldier fly. Marora protein. Just down here in Golobi, there is another factory I visited in Mukono. They're using the black soldier fly to produce a fertilizer, a perfect organic fertilizer for coffee, for all the other crops. And we have several, including those that are not even documented. There is a young girl I keep meeting everywhere we go with the Minister of Agriculture in Mityana recently at an agriculture show, organic agriculture show, organized by one of our member training colleges, RUSID in Mityana. And this young girl is using different materials to produce a perfect liquid organic fertilizer. And the testimonies she gets from her farmers are encouraging and very affordable, really, really affordable. Just a liter or two would be enough to cover an acre. And that would guarantee a 40 to 50% growth in yields. Yes. So we are not short of options. And by the way, Uganda is the country with the highest number of certified farmers on the African continent. Really? That speaks to our rich culture in organic agriculture, but also the milestones we've attained in the world of organic agriculture. We have a lot of expertise here. Yeah. I am just one of those experts in Africa, or in Uganda for that matter. Uganda is looked at as the center of excellence. There is a lot of information here. So Uganda, through a public-private partnership, we can join hands with government to roll out a capacity building program that will target the extension workers, that will target the farmers, that will target all producers across the country. And it comes at a very low cost compared to what you'd spend on fertilizers and these things that are imported from out there. We have people that are so passionate about organic agriculture, and they're here and they're exploring all different avenues. Exactly, to provide solutions, nature-friendly solutions to our farmers. Chariton, now that we've had this conversation, now that you have even hinted that amongst all the others, there is still this particular lady that is making this wonderful product, and you get to keep meeting her every now and then. Now that you have highlighted that surely that the farmers down there are disconnected, yes, the head is totally disconnected from the feet. What can you do as Nogamo? Like, what is the strategy right now, maybe that you're going to employ within the next 5 years to ensure that something is done? Yeah, so over the next 5 years, first of all, we are increasing awareness about the benefits of organic agriculture, starting from inputs to production, processing, and the market. Most importantly, the market. The market. The market is huge and guaranteed for anyone that ventures into organic agriculture or trade. The market is guaranteed. So we are raising this awareness. That's point number one. Point number two, we are working with government to strengthen the enabling environment. That's not our role. It's the role of the government. Yeah. But we are working closely with the government to make sure that we develop what we've dubbed as the Organic Agriculture Bill. In 2019, government developed and launched the National Organic Agriculture Policy. But to operationalize this policy, we need a bill, we need a law, an act of parliament that will then put in place punitive measures and all these things and regulations to implement the policy. And this has been happening, and we are progressing very, very well, and we're working very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, and thanks to the minister or the leadership of the ministry, they are very positive and very much switched on to ensure that we have an enabling environment. The other thing that we are doing is to promote the production of inputs, organic fertilizers, organic pesticides, and as I said earlier, increase the demand and supply, create these linkages, link producers, like now this manufacturer, this lady I've just talked about, we are constantly linking them to producers that are interested in this kind of product. And even the farmers that use the product, we encourage them to spread the word, let other farmers know about the availability of this product that can increase yield. The other thing that we are doing, of course, is to work very closely with the government to establish the requisite infrastructure for bulking at the different levels, right from the farmers level, where groups are formed, and then at that level we conduct trainings in group dynamics and all these things to help farmers bulk and then link them to the market. And our marketing efforts are not only limited to international markets, also domestic and regional. Also domestic and regional, because we realize there is a lot of potential in the domestic and regional markets. There are many supermarkets in Uganda, for instance, Carrefour just down here, that are stocking organic products, some of which are imported, you can imagine. And the reason some of the farmers are not supplying these supermarkets is because they lack certification, number one. Number two, that certification is broad, organic certification, but also UNBS certification, because you cannot put your honey, for instance, in a jar that is not well labeled and without a UNBS mark. Nobody will buy it. Even the supermarket will not take it up. So these are some of the measures. And at the international level, we continue to promote and market our products globally through international trade fairs. Like just recently in February, we participated, and thanks to our Minister of Agriculture, who led the delegation, we participated in the biggest organic fair in Germany.
Really?
The biggest organic fair in Germany, where 80% of the global buyers and suppliers meet.
Where?
Every year in German Nuremberg, every February, and next year we'll be having a Uganda stand. So to showcase what we have and build confidence and trust within the consumers and buyers or importers of these products, that Uganda has something to offer. Premium quality organic products. And working backwards to share this information with the different producers and exporters and traders and suppliers of these products.
We will be tracking you. We will be tracking you, because we need to know exactly what is being done, how the trickle down of this information is getting down there, because clearly, as we started off from the very beginning, the challenge has been very poor coordination. Not only just being able to harness the potential, which is totally untapped for organic products in Uganda, but the fact that there is also quite a lot of potential in the different amazing infrastructure that is being rolled out, and then the budgetary allocations are also being pushed within those infrastructures, and yet there is nothing being done. But we know the future is very bright for Uganda's organic products. There is quite a huge global market for them, and you come off on a positive, a very positive note.
And I have been very consistent in my message. I started off as the international marketing officer, linking Ugandan exporters to global markets, where I traversed more than half of the globe, searching for markets for Uganda. So the problem is not so much...
It's not the global markets, it's there.
The problem is at the point of production, and that's where I think the PPP, public-private partnership, is appropriate and critical to ensure that we elevate the farmers from a point of traditional farming practices to a point where they are practicing what we call truly organic, and we can certify them, get them, certified along different paths. The path of participatory guarantee system, which is very, very affordable, and then the path of third-party certification, which is costly, and government again can invest in that for the first 3 years, and when the project takes off, then they'll be able to take care of
this has been some insight coming in from Chariton, who is the CEO for Nogamo, as well as the president again for a different network,
the African Organic Network,
but still under organic network, organic farming in Uganda. There is quite a lot of potential and a huge market, untapped market for Uganda's organic products, and we are hopeful that this year around something can be done, something that will trickle down and enable a coherent, consistent, and very coordinated chain from the farmer all the way to the global person, the end user. This has been Doreen Kemchas, joined by Chariton, the CEO from Nogamo, and see you next time. Hopefully you can be able to transition and be able to utilize this information. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and see you next time.